Welcome, everybody. I'm Teal of Joy Journey Insight. I had somebody ask me a couple of days ago about my daily practice because I was sharing some pictures of something from my daily practice. And I think they were asking more specifically about my current practice and kind of what I plan to do going forward. So what I plan to do is make another video at a later point, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, that talks about daily practice in general, and maybe even the evolution of my own daily practice in a little bit more depth. But I think in this case, I think I'm just going to talk about sort of what I do now. But first, I think it's important to talk about what a daily practice is, right? A daily practice is some activity that you engage in that helps you ground and center. It can help to soothe you emotionally or calm you mentally or stimulate you mentally. So it might be like getting your day started. Could be to spark your creativity. For some people, there's a spiritual component to daily practice that connects them to, the world around them in some way, or to deity or source, or however you think about that kind of energy, to your ancestors, whatever. And so it has a different meaning to different people. But I think I like best the way that Molly Remer talks about it in her 30 Days of Goddess daily practice that she created back in 2021. She started in 2021. And she basically says, I actually have one of her daily practice prayer books here. And she just says, here are her reminders for what a daily practice is. Keep it simple, keep it small, keep it nurturing and personally meaningful. And so this idea is that this is something that you can conceivably do. So you want to keep it manageable with your current schedule and access to resources. But remember, you don't have to buy a book that someone else has made to do daily practice. You could have like a little notebook that you write in every day if you're going to be including writing in there. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's cost prohibitive. In fact, that's kind of the opposite of the point of daily practice. Keep it something that you can afford. Keep it something that you can make fit into your schedule. And as she points out, I think very, very importantly, there's no behind. You don't get behind. If you miss a day, you just miss a day and you move on, you go to the next day. And there's no right way. Everyone has to figure out what their daily practice is. So I'm going to tell you what I do, but I want you to know that I'm not saying I do it the only way, the right way for someone else, or whatever I do, what works for me. And it looks different from day to day, from week to week. There are certain pieces that typically remain the same. So so depending upon what my day looks like, I like, if it's possible, to start my day with something called morning pages. If you're familiar with The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron talks about morning pages, and what she has you do is basically get up. You can make your tea or your coffee. This is my chai tea in here. And then sit down and just, write for 3 whole pages, which can take anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes to an hour, depending on how distracted you are. The idea is that you're not supposed to be distracted. Let's just sit down and write. Now, this is one that I have been doing on and off for decades, but sometimes I'm really great about it and I get to it every day. And sometimes it's months before I get back to my morning pages. I also actually call this something a little bit different. I gave myself a couple of years ago, I was like, why do the morning doesn't really work for me. I'm going to give myself permission to do it at other times. Now, Julia Cameron's like, morning pages are in the morning, but there are other things like, I can't remember the book right now. It's called A Daily Dialogue. Sometimes it's called Free Writing, Our First Thoughts. It's Natalie Goldberg and her Writing Down the Bones. In a lot of present day bullet journals, they call this just a brain dump page. Which none of the rest of those sort of have a time requirement. So writing it, taking time at the end of your day to do a daily reflection might be better for you, or taking time at lunchtime to write, to do that. but despite the fact that I give myself permission to do it at different times of the day, I still often end up feeling guilty if I don't do it in the morning. So some days I get to this one and sometimes I don't. This month I actually have gotten to it a couple of days. So this isn't one that typically is something I necessarily end up doing every day. But what I actually end up doing, first thing I do is this is my office, which is also my dressing room. My dressers are in here. It's also my meditation space, my yoga space, my reading nook. This is like a lot of things, and it became so much more during quarantine. It like took on a whole life of its own. Originally, it was our guest room, and then when our son moved out, when he turned like the month before he turned 27, about 5 years ago, ended up turning his old room into the guest room, and then this became sort of my space. And I slowly have added to it, where this once almost empty room is now just cluttered with furniture and things. That's how it works, isn't it? So one of the things I'm planning to do next year in 2024 is to do some decluttering. Anyway, that's an aside. So often what I will do, I get up and, after I do my morning, whatever that I need to do, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, make myself some tea or water or whatever. I'll come in here, light an incense. I love incense. And turn on some kind of instrumental music in the background. Sometimes I put on Enya. Sometimes I have different CDs like Leibana, which has chants in it. Sometimes I'll go to YouTube and find, just some instrumental new age Celtic type music, or Zen meditation music, or those kind of things. That's what I like having in the background while I'm doing this. So that kind of sets up my day. So the incense and the music are actually a big part of that daily practice, kind of puts me in that space, right? As I've already come into my office space, which is a sacred space, because my altar is also over there. Like I have, like, this is my space. So if I have time and I have the capacity, I will do morning pages first, and then I step over to a couple different things. So usually the next step is to pull out what this is called a ritual planner. Hang on. I'll flip it around so you can actually see how the name is about. So it's the Ritual Planner. And I've been using this, I think last 2022 is when I got my first one, because a friend recommended it. She used it and I was like, oh, well, let's check it out. The first one I had like where you would pull 3 cards a day. This one and the one I have for next year is just single card a day. There's a space at the beginning of the week where you would pull cards for the week. I usually pull woman runes there. And also the space over here is supposed to be for an affirmation. I usually put my word of the month, word of the week here, and then my card of the week. Sometimes I pull an oracle card, usually, but I've been pulling tarot card for the card of the week. There's also a word of the year that I like this year. We're still in 2023. This year, my word of the year was harmony, with a support word of healing, and I did a lot of healing this year. And then the word of the month, I pulled words. Let me show you really quick before I actually do that. So one of the things that I like about the Ritual Planner is that it has a couple of things going on with it. So at the very beginning, towards the beginning anyway, there's a spot that does the year ahead spread. So you pull a different card for each month, and then you can pull a card for the energy of the year, or you can use the one that, like 2024, 2 + 0 + 2 + 4 = 8, which is the strength card. You could put that there. Or you could do the numerology that takes your birth date, your birth month, and the year, and creates a number, and you keep it to 22 or below, and I know it's usually a major arcana. Or you can just pull randomly. I did both, so I have the numeric one, and then I have the one that I pulled. So for 2023, I didn't write that down, but I actually did know what mine was. I put it in my regular journal. Hang on. When I used the mathematical formula, I came up with 15 or 6, which was the Lovers or the Devil. The random card that I pulled was the 9 of Cups. I also pulled an oracle card for the year, using the Threads of Fate oracle. And then last year's number was 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3, which was 7. So the Chariot was the overall card. And then I also pulled word cards for each month. So I came up with a word for each month. But also Molly Remer, who does the 30 Days of Goddess daily practice, which she started in 2021. She's a Brigid Grove there. I think I was reading off of the page for you. And just in case you're curious about that, there's her 30daysofgoddess.com for companion material. So she has some things that she keeps free and available to everybody, and then other things that you have to purchase. Or if you're a patron of her Patreon, I think that's the right way to say that. There are bennies that you get. I'll talk about that in a little bit, and because I incorporate some of those into my own daily practice. There's also space for so later in the month. The first I was just writing them down. So sometimes I then will, these cards, these are most of the stuff I have in here is like from Brigid Grove, actually. But I would do that, and then I would write about this is about the card, the Oracle card, the tarot card, and the Oracle card that I pulled. That's September. Sometimes I do the oops, I gotta fix that little something I put in the and turn it into a little pocket there. This has October. So at the beginning of each month, there's like they also have a spread for the month. They also include spreads for the full moon and the new moon. This one I took some different artwork from different places and glued it. So I made a little art page in there, which is not generally my thing. It's actually one of the reasons why I started doing the daily practice stuff with the 30 Days of Goddess, because I'm a writer. And so what I wanted to do is challenge myself, take myself out of my comfort zone, and actually try to do something a little different, which was making these little art pages and whatnot. I'm trying to find something, and I don't remember what I'm looking for. So sometimes I also pull in stuff. So I actually found this great printable deck called the Crystal Council Oracle by Christy Huggs. It's a printable deck, and so I printed out. I chose the size and printed it, put it in here. This other stuff is by Brigid Grove. I also use this tarot by the moon from Ethany, and it actually, so each new moon and full moon, she also has a tarot spread, and so sometimes I get to those and sometimes I don't, but I keep them in here in the Writial Planner so that I have it all on hand. So that's one resource that I use, that I've been using for a couple of years. But normally, hang on, I've got it also stacked around me so I can access it. So bear with me. Try not to knock stuff over in the process. Oh my goodness, all the things. I'm trying to show you all the things. See how quickly I can do this. So I usually, before I ever got the Writial Planner, and I continue to because I do, larger spreads in it. This is my tarot journal. I'm sure I wrote that. Teal's tarot journal. And I used to keep them in smaller notebooks, more like my morning pages, like a composition journal or just a regular notebook. And then I was like, oh, I want something bigger so I can keep track of it. It's cumbersome, and I would recommend something a little smaller and more manageable, actually. So if I had it to do all over again, I probably wouldn't. But what I have done in here is that a lot of times, sometimes if I wanted to like write stuff down, like when I was putting together my rune book for the rune class that I teach, I kept writing it in here, what the meanings were for the different, because I was looking all over. Other times, let's see, I was trying to find other times if I'm doing a big spread or a spread that I haven't done before, I might, hang on, I'm trying to find, and I have all kinds of things. It's not just tarot spreads. I've also got Lenormand readings and rune readings. So this is a spread that I like to do. It's called the spiral spread, and it's meant to be done on the equinoxes and the solstices. And so, but that's too big for me to put elsewhere. So if I were going to do that, which I did do for the winter solstice, for example, I would write it down in here. And that came from the spiral spread. I think I posted about it on the page already, but it came from the Sacred Journey daily journal from 2011. And I tried to find a more recent copy, and I think the last one that they made was in 2018, I want to say. So very disappointed to discover that I couldn't find this again. This one I really liked because again, the front section gave you places to write down about your goals, your ideas, your motto for life, your credo, your heart's calling, goals for the year, and specifically travel and play, lifestyle, personal. So I liked it. And I did a lot of stuff with that one too. But there's only so much, you can do at a given time. So I do have that for when I do larger readings or I'm doing stuff that doesn't really fit. Sometimes I will just put it in my regular journal. That's how I used to do it. Before I had a tarot journal or the ritual planner or any of that, I would just write my daily readings in my journal, right? But let's see. So another resource that I've used this year, so you see me sort of flowing this around. In 2021, I actually did a prayer book every month. These are created by Molly Remer, Brigid. And when I first started doing them in 2021, I couldn't afford to really buy anything. I just printed off the free stuff that she made available to folks and then folded it in half because it was kind of this size, folded it in half and wrote on it, did what I was going to do. And then later I was able to buy these. And then she also created something called a logbook. So instead of the daily stuff that you would do on this page, there were like 3 days on there, and then there was the art page to the side. And so actually I kind of liked it because it challenged me to do artwork here. When I first started using it, I just wrote all over it. And then I was like, well, let's add in so the artwork. I've seen other people do some interesting things with art. Let's do that. So throughout this year, though I didn't do the prayer books, I mostly stuck to, and I didn't do logbooks this year either. So I think in 2021 I did mostly prayer books. 2022 I think I did mostly logbooks, and then this year I did mostly the ritual planner, with the occasional exception. And I'll talk to you more about November and December in a minute, but occasionally I would reach out and I got these little ones. So compared to this one's like a half page. This one's even smaller, right? And so in May I did this, and what did I use in May? I did the Futhark runes. In October, August. And then in August, and there's like a little bookmark and some things I put in, like I made a little pocket. This was August, and then October. And I think I did the Ogham in August, and I did the Futhark runes in October. So I just, for those 3 exceptions, right, I mostly use the ritual planner. And then in October, so I'd already bought this one that I was going to use, this little one I was going to use for October. In October, for her patrons, Molly changed some things up, and she created this little packet that included poetry and pictures and things like that, as well as basically a larger logbook. And so I'll show you November and December here in a second. But I printed off the one she made for October, but separated out the logbook part from the poetry and all the other pieces, so that I could then, I made copies of it and used that for November and December as a logbook. So but this is something you don't get if you're not a patron, but it's really kind of meaningful, to me. And why I think it's worth being a patron, in my opinion, but that she sort of put this together. So in November, for November, December, she combined them. The words were deepen and discover, and actually discover was November and deepen is December. And she put all those together, and then she kept the back really, really simple. But because I'd already printed off what she made in October, I use that in November and in December. And so it gives you places where you can, you could write, you could do a rune here. You could also write down, I could have done a tarot card, oracle. This could be an oracle card or some other notes, some notes and questions and whatnot, and then goals and intentions. So that's a nice sort of opening page. And then this is kind of organized by the week. And I had this tied together because this was the only paper I had in my printer, and it had the holes pre-punched. I don't know where my spouse got it from or why, but and so I just used that, and but then I took the yarn out of November and put it in December to make it easier. And so this is what I mean by logbook, right? So like there's this, in this case, there's like 4 on the page. I could write, so 4 days worth of stuff, and then the opposite side of it. So when it was together, not just pulled together by a paper clip, it looked like that, right? And so I had the space for an art page if I want to, especially if I have artwork like this that was too big for even this size of a book. I mean, I'd printed it too big, and then I just hung on to it. And so then I was like, oh, perfect, I'll just put it in there. Like on the back of this is actually a little prayer for 30 days of God is simple and sacred. And I just sort of like that. And then after a while I stopped pasting on that page, but that's kind of what I did with that. And then when I removed the yarn, which I have so much yarn, it was not a problem to do that. And I moved it over to December. And I did the same thing with December. Although in December, Molly also did a thing about cave time, and I actually printed that out and plopped it in there. So I added it to my little journal. And so what you see sort of pasted in there, these are little cards that Molly has made to go with each of the words. And sometimes she has multiple cards. And so I just paste them on there, and then I write about with the rune or the ogham or whatever. I also, this is one of the art pages that I did. So I'm actually a member of Patreon for both Bridget's Grove and Kelli Lincoln of Dancing Goddesses. And so this is actually from the December card from Kelli Lincoln and the Dancing Goddesses. So that's what I kind of do. So you'll see, sometimes I have stickers, sometimes I have, other things like that in there. And so those are things that sort of keep me engaged and, doing things. But I also give myself permission, because it takes a little bit more effort for me to do the art pages. I give myself permission to skip art pages if I want to, or to I know there's no going back necessarily, but I sometimes go back and do the art pages, or doing the art pages ahead of time. Sometimes doing art pages like on Sunday or Saturday when I might have a little bit more time, and then pulling the cards and writing. Sometimes I pull cards like ahead for the next day or for the week. So another thing that I use in my daily practice is the Dragontree Dreambook and Planner. And actually it has a fancy cover, but I took it off so I could show you. And so the first front part of this one, so at the beginning of the year, this is really nice and reflective because it has this whole section, the Dreambook section, where it asks you questions to connect to your true desires and purpose. What's your, what do you want for the coming year? What are your gifts? What goals and things like that do you have? And so it's a really kind of a nice little sort of thought process thing. And then you get to sit down and plan out stuff if you want to. I'm good at that. So what actually I think last December, about a year ago, I actually did a little thing with the Dragontree, group. And then one of the things they asked us to do was to write down, I am my own hero, and write 3 things about yourself that make you your hero. So I wrote, I am passionate and positive. number one. Two, I am warm-hearted and caring. And three, I'm creative and colorful. Okay, so that's 6 things, but whatever. And so like this little card came from the Dragontree. It came when I purchased it. So at first, because I wasn't, because this is why I chose not to do the prayer book, because I decided I would use, so the beginning of each week, Dragontree has this page that like helps you, do tracking, give you ideas about things that you can do. Rituals for thriving, they call it, habit tracking. What am I going to focus on? What are my top 3 goals? So that's what this page is specifically designed to be an art page. And I was like, okay, cool. And I did really good until about March, and then I kind of petered out. So, trying to find, there's one that's kind of my favorite in here. And I think it's this one. So for the week of Valentine's Day, I had actually gotten this as a gift from Molly Remer, and whoops, oh, I'm losing stuff out of the back. Whoops, that's what happens when you put stuff in the back. And so for a while I was using that as an art page, so I felt like I didn't really need to do the extra stuff. But again, remember, art stuff, I'll just put that over here, get to that later. Art stuff is a little bit more work for me, so sometimes I get to any kind of artwork and the collaging and things like that, and sometimes I don't. So, but this also was my daily planner for most of the year. I got another one, just sort of that's smaller and skinnier that I could carry around for work stuff. But this is the main planner that I have. But it's not the only planner. So sometimes I also pull from things like the We Moon planner, which is really nice in a number of ways. So because it has a lot of astrological data. It tells you what the moon is, and then what sign the moon is in, as well as what phase the moon is in. And it tells you about certain, when it's waning half moon, and when the Sabbats are. I'm a pagan, so like not like I don't know when the Sabbats are, but it's just kind of nice to have them in here, especially when they, you're like the winter solstice. Like, what is a specific date? Some of them are more for agriculturally based and don't have a specific date, but the solstices and equinoxes do. So there's poetry, there's pictures. So that's kind of a nice resource. Some people actually will write just little notes, not necessarily keeping it as a actual planner, but they might write little notes in their wee moon, like again, back to Molly, will write like what's a magic moment for the day, writes that down in her wee moon planner. And also kind of exciting, since I am a patron of Molly's, a member of Patreon, whatever. Anyway, she actually wrote all the different writings for the different holy days, or Sabbats as we call them. And so we actually got to, because I'm a Patreon, I actually got to see the original as well as what ended up in the Wee Moon Planner. So that was kind of cool. I have this year, I also pulled a little bit from the Modern Witch planner. This one was a gift from a friend, and really kind of interesting. And of course, and the Witch's Date Book, which also has other information as well. Sometimes I would actually use these against each other to kind of like look at the dates and times, because I think one is Pacific Standard and one is Eastern Standard, and then I have something else that's actually on GMT. GMT, is that right? Basically London time. And I was like, oh, I don't, what is that in correspondence to me? In 2022 and 2021, I also used the Moonology calendar. So the thing about these is that it's not just that they're planners, but also they have different things that tell you about what's going on with the astrology of things that are going on the day or the month, different things like that. Some of these have specific poetry or little articles about things. And then in 2021, I also used, and this one was a really fun one. I also used, this is called the Coloring Book of Shadows Planner for a Magical 2021. And if you get the actual, the one that's in black and white, you actually can color it in yourself. So this one, for example, is a kind of a set of readings for the year ahead. It actually has a tarot spread in it, if you will. But then there's like here's a page about moon gardening, the best times to do that. And then on the, that had different size symbolism along the sides, pictures you could color. She has since, I think it was last year that she actually made one of these in full color, because people ask her if they could, can you just get one? I don't necessarily want to color it, but I really love the artwork. So she also makes one. Of course, a little bit more expensive to get the full color one. But that was a nice thing to do. So again, if you like to do a little bit of creative things like coloring and things like that, that's really nice. Sometimes I have other things like occasionally for patrons, Molly will make little books that have poetry or also things that you can color. This is called Cave Time, about the kind of the time of year we're in. And again, this was something that was one of the bennies, if you will. And usually a lot of time with these planners, I kind of take them the month ahead, and I go through each day in my Dreambook planner, for example, and I will see if I can find a page that's not quite, oh no, this one's actually kind of quite busy. So that's okay. Let's see if I can find one that's not, I can't, because my days are always busy. So, what I like about this one is that it also has, sort of, if you're trying to keep track of a habit, you can do that. Let me find where I actually checked off a lot of stuff. So what I do with my Dreambook planner is, like, up here at the top, I will put what the moon is in. Like here it says first quarter. Here the moon in Libra. It doesn't switch over until there. And I will usually write that across the top. The word of the day, which I get from Molly Remer's 30 Days of Practice, 30 Days of Goddess Daily Practice. I'll put those in there. Sometimes down here at the bottom, if you can see, I write down my cards. Later, I was writing down all of them. Here, I was just writing down the tarot card. At the bottom is spaces for me to write about the habits I'm tracking. Let's see if I can find where I was doing a little bit better with the writing on the side. So, and I could also write down tasks for what I wanted to do for the week, and that kind of stuff. Oh, yeah, here's a good one from, I don't even know, August. So you can see how busy it can get sometimes, right? Because I'm writing down a whole lot of things. So this was my schedule for the day. Here were my different readings, card readings. Here were notes about what was happening in terms of my the habits I was trying to track. Over here's the decks I was using. So it can get quite busy. Although, of course, this week it's been nice to say. This week, oh, that's a note to myself. I will put that to the side. Here's this week. So I actually pulled all my cards ahead. I pulled them on Sunday or Monday, I can't remember, but I pulled them ahead. So I actually have them written down, and I will go back and pull them in to write more details elsewhere, and then share those. So that is, man, I have so much stuff I'm going to have to pick up off the floor when I'm all done with this video. So typically I do, so I burn the incense, I got the music going, I'll do pull the card from my ritual planner. So unless it's a Sunday or a Monday, because then there's also the card of the week, the word of the week, and then like the 3, and I usually use woman runes for my weekly draw for the weekly energy. Then there's a little bit extra step, right? But so I do those card pulls, and if I'm going to do more, so the last couple of months I have been, also pulling a rune or an ogham, and using those little log books, right? That Molly made. And then this year, I have also been using this. This is the 365 Mandala journal by Kindy, Lynn. And so each month there's a different mandala. The idea is supposed to color it in, but I was just like, oh, that's so pretty. I didn't do that. And then each page has day 1, day 2 for each month. And so that was a different structure for me in terms of a journal. I don't journal that way. So I decided this would be a companion for my readings. So that's why, like, you see the word of the year, word of the month, word of the day, card of the day, what, the January 1st, what day of the week it is. So I started with that. So all the pages have that basic information up there. And then I started out, I was going to do affirmations and intentions. That's what it was going to be. So, because that used to be part of my daily practice. I would, write down affirmations for the day, intentions for the day in the morning, and then in the evening I would do a gratitude list. So it starts out with that, and then I started occasionally writing poetry, quotes from other things, and then sometimes I would write, like, here's May. Sometimes I would write about like how I interpreted all of the different cards, especially December. I've been pulling a ton of cards. So like April 30th, the word of the day was persist. I wrote, I persist, I endure. Patience is my companion, happiness my guide, and love for the sacred in the ordinary is my key to growth. So I wrote that, and then I had 2 quotes in here from, Molly Remer. Sometimes I wrote down what the meaning was. So dark moon, new moon, I actually wrote about what the difference between dark moon and new moon was. I have this day, I had this is a bookmark that made by Molly Remer, and then I wrote a poem, related to that. Some days, nothing, right? So I gave myself permission that if I missed a day, I missed a day, and unlike other places, I actually did stick to that. Like if I don't get to it, I don't get to it, right? So today, the 27th, is when I'm doing this video. I wrote down the cards that I pulled, the word of the day and whatnot, but I didn't actually write anything, down. That was kind of where I was at. So that there's those pieces that you give yourself permission to sometimes do them, in whatever order. So then I would write in there. Then I also would read out of a daily reader of some kind. Earlier in the year, I was reading from In This Moment, which is a daily meditations book for CODA, which is Codependent Anonymous, and from Glad Day, Daily Meditations for Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender People by Joan Larkin. But this is, of course, for LGBTQ plus folks in recovery. You can tell that from some of the language. And I do have a fair number of 12-step readers, because even though I don't go to any meetings anymore, I have been in several 12-step groups. But I like the daily reader kind of thing. Like I have one that I'm not using it now, but it's called Sacred Living, a daily guide. That was one that gave you sort of little quotations for each day. So in this case, I didn't use it this year, but I've used it in past years. And so, for example, today is December 27th. Oh, where's the rest of the month there? Okay, it stops on December 20th. So let's see if it starts up here, which is interesting. Oh, it must. Okay. So December 27th, because it talks about like this, so it ends on December 20th because then it actually opens up with the winter solstice. And so December 27th, self-determination. I release the gathering of the last few days and stand in the power of self-love, knowing what is right for me today. That's it. Just a little saying. So sometimes they're like that. I haven't used it for the whole year because it didn't come out until mid-year, but I've been using 365 Days of Goddess, where she has a different poem each day. So that's kind of inspiring. I already have it marked. So this is actually tomorrow's poem. This is for December 28th. Collect the threads of your attention, some soft and warm, others sharp and shining. Soften your shoulders and unclench your life, letting awareness open up the space you crave. Step into the present. Attune yourself to what is here now. Let wandering and wishing fall away and planning and proving evaporate. Allow yourself this pause, precious and powerful, rare and restorative, to be enfolded by holy here-ness. So I love the idea of that. Also, I like the message there, like where we are here and now is sacred, right? And so I also, bear with me, I'm going to get another one. So there's also a couple other books that I have. These are not the only ones, but a couple other books I have by Molly Remer. There's the Temple of the Ordinary, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I don't know if there's a third volume coming out, maybe. But those are nice to pull from daily poetry. So daily readings like that, or daily readings from another spiritual book. There was one that I was doing that had kind of like daily rituals to do for transformation. And I was just like, so you would read through it and then you would reflect on it and respond to it. And sometimes there's a task attached to it. So there's different things like that. But in general, my process is, write in the ritual journal, write in, in the last couple of months, write in the logbook or the little prayer book, and then write in the mandala journal, like to reflect on the day. And then, but sometimes I would do the readings before I would write in the journal. And then also I bought this for next year, but it's, so early in the month I bought this for next year because my word of the year is thrive, but I ended up starting to use it anyway. So this is called Thriving as an Empath, 365 Days of Self-Care for Sensitive People by Judith Orla. And it's a similar kind of setup in the fact that there's something for each day, right? So today's is life review. By taking stock of your experiences this year, you'll gain clarity and compassion on your journey as an empath. Now there's more to it, of course. But so usually doing all the readings and then the card readings and then doing these readings, then I would write in my mandala journal about reflecting on all the different things that I have sort of, gotten from all of that. And then sometimes that's it, right? Sometimes I stop there. Other times, if I have them, this actually comes from, I actually made copies of certain pages from Cave Time and made a little bit of time for myself to do a little coloring. Right, printing off poems to go with it. But the idea was, I told you, all the pages have those circles in them, to give myself something like creative and gentle to do. And so that is generally, I'm trying to look around, see if I have everything. That's generally what my daily practice looks like in the morning. Sometimes, like right now it's not so much, but sometimes I like to also I actually like to start my day before even getting to my morning pages. I like to start my day with yoga. It just doesn't happen. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. So what often happens is yoga or a walk will happen midday, for example, rather than first thing in the morning. So kind of spreading it out throughout the day, right? There's no reason also why you can't do like little pieces here and there. You could do a card pull in the morning and then at noon when you have 10 minutes, go and actually look up the meaning of the card and write it down. And then in the afternoon, take 10 minutes for yoga. Like it doesn't have to happen in one big chunk. And I think that's another thing that people get confused about, right? So typically those are the things that I do. If I have more time, maybe I'll actually sit down and do a little bit of art on some of the artwork or art pages, or I might do additional divination or additional readings or write more in my journal. And then in the evenings, I like to do a little bit of reflection in my personal journal and also in here. Now, this was a gift for me from a couple of years ago, and so I'm not consistent with it as the way that I use it because sometimes. Well, let me start over. So this gift is Moments of Joy Journal was a gift to me from a friend. So Joy Journey Insight, I started about 2018, and part of that came from my word of the year was joy. And then I did a meditation the December before. And in the meditation, I actually saw a path. And then I looked at what the path looked like in my meditation. I'm like, that is Writial, which is the rune of journeying, of travel. So for those of you who do runes, it was kind of like Wunjo Redo. And so in essence, it was a joy journey. And that created Joy Journey Insight. So I've been doing, readings and spiritual counseling for a very long time, but I didn't have a specific, business, for it at that point. And so that's sort of what created this. So taking my gifts and sharing them in this, energy exchange, I think is something really meaningful to me. So, but anyway, so this long story to get to that, right? So this is the idea is that you're supposed to write down 3 joys from your day. And I started doing it that way. And then it quickly became a gratitude journal. So instead of saying, here's my joy for the day, then I started running, I am grateful for. So same idea, right? But it worked that way. But the reason why, even though I got this was a gift in 2019, and I still haven't finished it, and I probably should have, it probably would have lasted for a year, is that I often write my gratitude list elsewhere. Sometimes I'll write them in my regular journal. In most of 2022, I don't think I did it in this one. In most of 2022, I used my Dreambook planner, because the little section at the bottom is a place where you can write I am grateful for. So it's a tiny little spot where you can do a gratitude list or item a day. Right. So even though I have this and I keep coming back to it, I have written gratitude lists in all kinds of places. So I still have it. Eventually, I'll actually finish using it in that way. And I'll go back to my other system of just writing in my journal. So I like to do that in the evening and sometimes write in my journal and reflect. I like to end my day with a cup of hot tea. I like to start with hot tea, except for when it's really hot. I like to start with hot tea. And I like to end with hot tea. Now in the morning, I usually start with a hot chai tea. And in the evening, I like to have some herbal tea. Does that always happen? No, but it's a nice calming ritual. So the nice thing I like to do then in the evenings, after dinner and after I visited with my spouse for a little bit, then my spouse goes off and plays video games. Occasionally I will stay and play video games with them. There's like a handful that I play. And like Diablo, what are we on, 4 or 5 now? And Champions, that's and then like Mario Kart. Not really great at any of them. But occasionally I'll do that, or we'll watch a movie together. But a lot of times, after dinner, we visited for a little bit, and then I'll come down here. I'll do some extra divination. I'll write my gratitude list. I might meditate, or I might also crochet. And I'm pointing back to the chairs. I would be sitting in my chair, right? I might bring crocheting or knitting down here, which I find to be very meditative and calming. Playing some calm music in the background with more incense burning. And so those are different kinds of things that I do. Some days it's really, really busy. I pulled a card the night before and wrote down what the card was. And that's all that happened for that day. I didn't even do anything that day, right? And then some days I'm like 4 hours of I'm doing artwork, I'm writing stuff down, I'm doing readings, I'm all involved. So I think it's, again, important to remember that, what that looks like each day might be different depending upon your day, your energy level, the amount of time you have, right? And I also want to reinforce the idea that even though I'm like, here's this resource I use, and here's this resource I use, that most of my daily practice throughout most of my life, I'm 51 and a half, hasn't been with things that a bajillion things I've bought. I've took one journal, one notebook, even, 10-cent notebook from are they 10 cents anymore? I don't know, inflation. But you know what I mean? Like I, for a long time, I only had, a handful of tarot decks. Like I know I show pictures. I'm like, here's my 200 plus decks. And that's just where I'm at now, that I can't afford to do that, and it's become a little bit of a thing for me in the last 5 years. But I've always had decks, but usually it was just like 10, like I'd carry them around in a bag and that was it. Now I have a little bit more. So, but I do know that buying decks and collecting decks and using them are two different things. I just happen to have both right now. So I know that I'm very lucky right now in my life, and I'm very privileged to be able to actually get these different resources. But I want to remind you that you don't have to, right? Like you can go to the dollar store and get a notebook and a package of incense, right? If you want to. And that's all you have to start with. You can, oh, I didn't grab them. I actually have some homemade cards that I made. I have homemade Futhark runes, homemade Ogham, and homemade woman runes that I basically just went to the store and bought some, oh gosh, what are those cards called? Little cards people use with their speeches, right? They're just like little, I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. Anyway, and I just drew on them, and I used those, and then I looked online for the meanings of them. So I just want to remind you that I don't want you to think that expense should be that daily practice should be cost prohibitive. Please keep your practice simple and affordable and manageable. That's really what it's about. And just realistic. Like I said, for me, there are days that I pull the card the night before, or or the day after. And then there are other days that I have lots of time and I use it, that way. My schedule is variable. Because what I do changes, every 8 to 16 weeks. My schedule looks a little bit different. So that said, sometimes I also take time to put classes together. So I teach tarot classes. I also teach a class about runes. I teach about a class about Lenormand, if you've ever heard of that. I have a class teach about Ogham. I have a tarot and rune magic class. And I have other classes that I have taught in the past, but not currently teaching. And so I run my classes typically through Howl the Moon Gem. Is kind of helps both of us on that side. Because typically she's more like Sue tends to run sort of the advertising kind of piece of it, and I do the teaching, and then we split the costs. All my classes are through Zoom, by the way. And so that's another thing that I might be doing, is sort of preparing for that, during my time in the morning or in the evening. But again, what I'm suggesting to you is that my daily practice, I have learned that it has to be flexible, because my energy levels are different each day. My capacity and my time and all those things can vary. So just give yourself that grace. But it is important to try to have some level of sort of commitment to, here's what I'm going to do, and to try to stick to it as much as you can, but also not to beat yourself up. If you miss a day, you miss a day. Move on. Just do it again the next day. I think that's a really good motto for life in general. But anyway, this is probably a way longer video than I planned for it to be. And like I said, I think I said this at the beginning, I can't remember now. I do plan to make another video where I actually talk about daily practice in general, although I did go into it a little bit here. And I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of my own daily practice and how it's changed over time. Right now, I incorporate a number of things from the 30 Days of Goddess practice that Molly Remer of Brigid created. But that wasn't the case, before 2021. And only slowly, I've incorporated those. Before that, I had access to different things or didn't have access to things. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And I kind of just want to give you a more sort of realistic view of that. But a huge shout out to Molly Remer of Brigid for all the work that she does to help create daily practice stuff, and again, to make it accessible and really focused in a lot of ways. Shout out to Kelli Lincoln for all the work that she does as well. I love the artwork and other things like that. And really just to all the different folks who have created these planners and the decks that I use, and all of that stuff. So I think that it really takes a lot of things. But like I said, keep it simple, keep it realistic. And think about what it is that you need, what calms you or what inspires you, what soothes you or ignites your creative spark, what energizes you. Maybe that's what you need in your daily practice rather than something that's calming. I have high anxiety, so I'm all like, so I need something that helps me ground and center. But you might need something that helps motivate you or inspire you for the day. So you get to decide what that means and what that looks like for you. Anyway, I just added probably 5 minutes to our really long video anyway. Anyway, I will get maybe the next couple of days or next week or so. Could be as early as tomorrow, could be, next Friday, I don't know. But I'll get another video out there just to sort of talk about this and touch base. And like I said, I wanted to make this video that has my face in it, and to kind of give you a sense for, who I am and kind of what I do with my daily practice is the question that was put forth to me. So I hope that in this in-between time, you know, which Molly calls cave time. I think that's great. I call it hermiting time, where you don't know what day it is and you're not sure, you know, what time it is. And, you know, you don't remember if you've eaten anything other than, you know, cheese. I think that was one of the memes I saw. You know, I hope that this time is gentle with you and that it is restorative, you know, for you. If you're able to actually um, embrace it, or, you know, because I know that some of you have, you know, jobs and fame and children. Our son is 32, so I don't really have to think about that too much. And he doesn't have children himself, so there's no grandchildren I have to think about in that, you know, dynamic. I know there's lots of things that can take up your time and your energy. So, you know, I want you to sort of keep that in mind when you're making this idea, but don't let it stop you. Don't let it stop you. Molly had a, you know, yoga practice, and she would she has pictures where she shows her kids climbing on her while she was like, I'm dedicated to this 10 minutes of yoga practice every day. And maybe that's the thing that you do, right? You know, however you need to make it work. And again, it can be an hour in the morning, or it can be 5 minutes, you know, different times throughout the day, whatever works for you. Anyway, for whatever's happening during this time period for you, I hope that it's gentle, and I hope that you are able to, you know, get through this time, you know, in a positive, or at least meaningful and hopeful kind of way. So, um, all right. And since it is almost that time, we are about 4 days away from the new year. So hope you have a good rest of the 2023. And I hope that you have a fantastic 2024. May we all thrive.